Are you kidding me? The words cracked across the Nevada heat like a rifle shot. Derek Shaw, 26 and too sure of himself, slammed his boot into the landing skid of the grounded UH-60 Black Hawk. The sound was hollow, metallic like a coffin refusing to open. On the tarmac of Fort Ironwood, chaos wore a mask of control. Laptops glowed on folding tables, hydraulics stable, ignition live. Fuel flow normal. By every metric, the Iron Angel should have been airborne. Yet she sat stubborn and silent, blades sagging under the desert sun as if mourning their own stillness. This is Stories Untold. Report in. Where are you watching from? Subscribe and stay in the fight for the next mission. A dozen technicians folded their arms, shifting uneasily across the field. NATO delegates waited in shaded bleachers, their curiosity turning to visible impatience. The air smelled of kerosene and humiliation. And then someone noticed him. At the edge of the runway stood a thin old man in denim jeans and a faded field jacket. White hair lifted in the dry wind. His hands stayed deep in his pockets, but his gaze was fixed on the helicopter, not on the men, not on the screens, but on the machine itself, as if he could hear something in her silence that no one else could. Second Lieutenant Carter Briggs, gold bars still bright from commissioning, marched over. His voice was clipped. Rigid. Sir, this is a restricted area. The old man didn't blink. His pale blue eyes slid from the helicopter to the officer. General Ellery sent for me. Name's Samuel Harlow. Shaw overheard, wiping grease onto a rag. He snorted. Harlow, you're the relic the general dug out of retirement. We've got avionics specialists, master mechanics, even the manufacturer on call. What are you going to do? Pray over it? Sam's gaze drifted back to the Iron Angel. Just look, he said quietly. Laughter rippled through the crew. Shaw shook his head. 6 hours we've been looking. Every diagnostics green. Truth is, this bird just gave up. But Sam ignored them. He began a slow walk around the helicopter. His movements deliberate, almost ceremonial. His eyes traced seams no one else noticed. He crouched by the tail boom, studied the rotor mast, then stopped at a small panel near the engine cowling. He tilted his head, squinting. That panel, he murmured. Is it flush? Shaw rolled his eyes, irritation edging his voice. Torque's perfect, sensors red-green. There's nothing wrong. Sam didn't look away. Then why? He asked softly. Won't she breathe? The question hung heavier than the Nevada heat, an unanswered riddle that would decide whether the Iron Angel flew again or died a monument on the runway. Shaw threw his arms toward the glowing laptops as if they were scripture. The system tells us where the problem is, and it's not there. Sam's voice was gravel softened by time. Your system doesn't know this, Bird. I do. He reached into his faded jacket and pulled out a small leather pouch, scarred and worn smooth at the clasp by decades of use. His fingers trembled as he opened it, not from fear, but from age. Shaw sneered. What's in there? Grandpa A magic wand. Sam didn't answer. His eyes fell to the pouch, and for a heartbeat, Fort Ironwood disappeared. The Nevada heat dissolved into choking smoke. The sky turned the oil black of Kuwait. 1991. The Iron Angel shook violently, half her systems dying in the middle of a sandstorm. Tracers laced the haze. A pilot screamed into the radio. The co-pilot slumped bloody over the controls. In the back, infantry gripped rifles and prayed louder than the alarms. Sam, 25, then crawled onto the skid. Hydraulic fluid sprayed across his face. The wind clawed to tear him away, but he braced himself and ripped open his pouch. Inside was a hand-ground wrench, a tool no manual recognized. With it, He clamped down a bypass valve he had built himself, hidden deep in the machine's veins, against the odds. The Iron Angel steadied. She held long enough to bring those men home. That night, pilots whispered a name for him. The Ghost. The man who could raise dead birds. The memory bled away. The sun of Nevada returned. Sam looked up, his pale eyes steady. Briggs and Shaw saw only an old man with a shabby pouch. Sam saw the ghosts of soldiers still breathing because of it. Then Briggs' radio barked with fury. "Status." "Lieutenant." Briggs stiffened. "No change." "Sir, we're still troubleshooting a no-start condition." The civilian General Ellery insisted on his observing. "Put him on with the general." The order stung like a slap. Briggs shoved the secure phone at Airman Luis Ortega. Ortega had watched silently all morning, unease growing in his chest. He had seen the way Harlow studied the Black Hawk, not with arrogance, but reverence, like his grandfather once did, keeping tanks alive in Baghdad with wire, tape, and grit. Men like that didn't brag. They made impossible things work. He handed Sam the phone, then, pulse racing, he pulled out his own cell, months earlier. His uncle, a retired sergeant who had once served with General Ellery's aide, had pressed a number into his hand. For emergencies only. The kind they'll never see coming. Ortega had never dared use it until now. The line clicked. "Major Davies," came a harried voice. "Sir," Ortega whispered, turning his back to Shaw and the others. "This is Airman Ortega at Fort Ironwood. I apologize for breaking protocol, but it's about Mr. Harlow. They're treating him like he's senile, laughing at him, keeping him away from the aircraft. Sir, the computers don't know what's wrong, but I think he does." Silence. Ortega's stomach turned to stone. He pictured MPs dragging him away. Court-martial. Career over. Then came the scrape of a chair, muffled shouting, and the major's urgent voice. "General, you need to hear this." Now, the storm shifts. The weight moves to General Ellery, already on his way. The command center at Fort Ironwood froze. General Marcus Ellery's jaw flexed, his voice dropping to a growl that made senior officers stiffen. "Major, patch me to Colonel Hayes in the tower and get me a car. I'm going down there myself." He muted the line, eyes sweeping the room. For those who don't know, Samuel Harlow isn't just some retiree. He's the ghost of Desert Storm. The Black Hawk on that runway isn't just another helicopter. She's Iron Angel. His bird. He logged more combat hours on her than anyone on this base, and she carries a modification he designed in the desert, something no manual records. Without it, she stays cold. With it, she breathes. Silence answered. No one dared challenge him. On the tarmac, Sam Harlow ended a quiet call with Ellery, returned the phone to Airman Ortega, and gave the young man a nod of gratitude. Derek Shaw seized the lull. "Enough of this circus. The colonel wants her towed. I'll get her started." Sam's reply was calm. "Steady. Let me open that panel. She'll breathe again." Lieutenant Carter Briggs had reached his breaking point. His authority was bleeding out in front of his men, his career hanging by a thread. "That's enough." His shout cracked like a whip. "Mr. Harlow, you're a civilian interfering with a secure operation. Leave the line now, or I'll have you detained." Sam said nothing, his gaze unflinching. Briggs stepped closer, dropping his voice to a hiss. "One more word. Old man, and you'll be in the stockade." His hand clamped down on Sam's shoulder, intent on dragging him away. The runway held its breath. Then came the shriek of tires. 3 black command vehicles roared to a halt. Brakes screaming, dust curling into the air. Doors flew open before the wheels even stopped. General Marcus Ellery stepped out. Fury carved into his face. Colonel Hayes a pale shadow at his side. Briggs jerked his hand off Harlow's shoulder as if burned. Ellery didn't hurry. He moved like a predator, ignoring everyone until he stood directly in front of the old crew chief. The desert fell silent as Ellery snapped his heels together and threw the sharpest salute of his career. "Mr. Harlow," his voice carried across the tarmac, "it is an honor to have you here, and I apologize for the reception you've endured." Sam nodded once, weary, unsurprised, not vindicated, just tired. Ellery has shifted the balance, but can even a general's authority silence the arrogance festering in Briggs and Shaw? The tarmac lay silent, the desert wind scraping across concrete. Then General Ellery's voice cut through, calm and lethal. "Listen carefully. The man you mocked is Samuel Harlow, the ghost of Desert Storm, 2 silver stars, a bronze star with valor, and more flight hours on Black Hawks than anyone here." He pointed at the silent UH-60. "That's Iron Angel. She breathes because of a modification only he knows. You won't find it in laptops. You won't find it in manuals. Without him, she stays dead." The words hit like ordnance. Faces drained pale. Shaw's smirk collapsed. Briggs swallowed hard, his swagger gone. Ellery's voice sank lower, more dangerous. "Your arrogance, your blind faith in screens, and you put your hands on him." His eyes burned into Briggs. "You touched him." The lieutenant froze, shame spreading like fire. Then, softly, Harlow spoke. He laid a steady hand on Ellery's arm. "They're good men, General, just from another time. They trust their machines more than themselves. It isn't their fault. The bird only needs a familiar touch." The grace in his tone cut deeper than anger. The same men who had mocked him now stared in silence, stunned. Ellery held his gaze a long moment, then nodded curtly. "She's all yours." Ghost. Sam stepped toward the Iron Angel. From his pouch-scarred leather, worn smooth, he drew a wrench unlike anything in the technician's gleaming kits. Oddly curved, dark metal, forged from Apache scrap decades ago, a tool with no serial number, no manual, only memory. The world flickered. He was young again. In a sweltering hangar outside Kuwait City, grinding steel against stone. Sparks flew as he shaped the tool by hand, fitting it against a secret bolt no manual mentioned, a safeguard built for emergencies when seconds meant lives. The vision faded. Nevada heat returned. Sam knelt by the engine cowling. The bolts yielded easily under his practiced hand. He lifted the panel, exposing wires and one small lever invisible to diagnostics. It sat in the standard position, with the tip of his wrench. He nudged it gently to bypass. The lever clicked into place. He sealed the panel, tightened the bolts, then stood. His face was calm, almost distant. "Someone want to try her now?" he asked. Shaw hesitated. Sweat beaded on his temple. For the first time that day, he looked less arrogant and more afraid. Still, he slid into the left seat like a crew chief on a ground run, hands trembling over the controls. Behind him, the entire base seemed to hold its breath. Derek Shaw's hands hovered over the controls, his breath shallow. The Iron Angel had sat silent for hours, mocking every green check on every laptop. Now, with one flick of the switch, the truth would come. A cough, a sputter. Then, like a heart restarting, the turbine roared. The Black Hawk shuddered, her blades clawing the Nevada sky until they blurred into a shimmering halo. Whomp, whomp, whomp. The sound rolled across Fort Ironwood, a sound that once meant life to thousands. The reaction was electric. Technicians who had mocked now clapped until their palms burned. Airman Ortega blinked back tears, pride swelling in his chest. Even the NATO delegates rose to their feet, or cutting through their practiced detachment, and Samuel Harlow. He stood a few paces back, hands folded, his weathered face softened by a small, wistful smile. It wasn't triumph. It was reunion, an old friend drawing breath again. The fallout came quietly. General Ellery did not strip Briggs of his rank or throw Shaw out of the program. He knew shame would be punishment enough. Instead, he built something lasting, a heritage initiative, mandatory for every officer and mechanic under his command. Not just checklists and diagnostics, but the stories behind the machines, tales of grit, improvisation, and quiet courage that manuals would never record. The first module, the UH-60 Black Hawk. Its cover, a grainy photograph of a young crew chief in dusty fatigues, sleeves rolled high. Standing beside the Iron Angel, his name Samuel Harlow. A week later, Briggs and Shaw found him in a roadside diner just outside Fort Ironwood. The late sun slanted through wide windows, painting the cracked linoleum gold. Sam sat alone in a booth, nursing black coffee, his jacket folded beside him. He looked smaller now, just a man waiting for the day to end. They hesitated at the door, caps clutched in their hands. Finally, Briggs stepped forward, his voice breaking. "Mr. Harlow." Sam looked up, calm as ever. "Lieutenant, Derek." Shaw swallowed hard. "Sir, we came to apologize for the way we treated you, for not listening. We were arrogant, we were wrong, and we're sorry." For a moment, Sam studied them. He saw sincerity in their eyes, the weight of hard lessons learned. Then he gestured to the empty seats. "Sit down," he said gently. "Coffee's on me, and maybe, if you've got the time, I'll tell you a story or two about the Iron Angel." They slid into the booth, two humbled soldiers and one forgotten hero, bound by a single machine and a legacy of survival. Outside, the sun dipped low. Inside, Samuel Harlow began to speak, weaving stories that would outlive them all. The silent experience of the older generation is the hidden current that keeps missions alive, even if it's never written in any manual.